increasing these programs. Listen, I can sit here and say, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna try. It's gonna be darn hard. The first thing coming out of the box is gonna be the so-called reconciliation bill, which, chances are you're not gonna want me to vote for. But if there's Tim Scott is the chairman of the housing committee, the Banking Housing Committee, he and I have been talking a lot, he really wants to do something in housing. So maybe not in reconciliation, but is there something federal tax-based that we could do? I mean, if there was if you guys could come up with, again, maybe a carrot stick, or I don't know, my Republican colleagues, they hate writing checks, but they don't mind giving tax breaks.
Yes.
It is spending, but
So Senator, there are actually, I when you look at a house cost, right, today in Virginia, 25 to 28% is land, 25 to 30% is regulation and time. 25 to 30% of every home sold is regulation and land. And I think there are ways that we can figure out how to reduce regulation and then figure out how to streamline processes. Because at the end of the day, it also costs the county money when you have more and more staff reviewing, and it's staff time and staff resources doing it. So right now, any home built today in Fairfax County was approved 5 years ago.
But if I can push back, because Montgomery County isn't a home rule state, Maryland. We're a Dillon rule state, right? So I do think you have to take that into account to make sure that the localities are at the table.
But I would urge you to, whether I'm just, whether the Henrico thing is as interesting as they say it. I don't know, please, you guys are probably checking. I know they're giving me, but think about a federal, if you got a tax idea, especially I can go to my colleagues and say, this is faith-based, I think that becomes easier. Let me ask a ignorant bias question that may reflect my ignorance and bias. We need affordable for all communities, I would think, though, that the idea that, your teacher, your firefighter, your nurse, do we have any programs where the affordable is going to be limited to county employees or county employees plus?
So we have fair housing.
We're not allowed
laws.
to.
Yeah.
There's a federal
That's
housing
federal housing
requirement that doesn't allow us to do it based on occupation.
Yes.
There's
That's
one
simple.
limited exception. The Innova Innovative.
And I don't want to do anything other than say, oh my gosh, this is gonna put the most disadvantaged even out, but I would think, in real life, selling your community, because people have different images than reality.
But Senator Warner, ask Pastor Steve how long it's taken from when we first started this process, because we started it together, we were working on something across the street. 7 years. And there's no shovel yet in the ground. And this is in a county where Chairman McKay and the supervisors are very supportive and have been trying to unglue the gears in the process. But the reality is those gears are cost. That's a staff cost, that's a entitlement cost. And I'll tell you, as a developer, I mean, that's one of the biggest obstacles.
But this is where, again, there's lots of things with the new administration and DOGE and stuff that I don't agree with. But there ought to be some places, I think about the fact that and you guys may want to, again, throw me out after this. I want us to have, in communities that want, data center. We're not going to be able to power them with solar and wind alone. I'm a big advocate for nuclear. Most of the Democrats in the Senate have moved. SMRs, not the big old plants, but they're safer and it's also national security.
Yeah.
I think I got a lot of, the traditional Democratic pushback on regulatory reform if it's done smartly. We're ready, and that would be a place where we could meet the current administration.
Even if you can, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say one more thing to tag on to this conversation. We've been taking a long time to put together all of our financing, and the HUD 202 is phenomenal, really helps us get us there. But when we talk about added costs, the HUD 202 comes with Build America, Buy America,
That's right.
which when we went back to our contractor and said, now we have HUD 202, this adds just for the BABA $765,000 to our construction
Yeah, it's a
contract.
15% additional
So
cost. to-
that is an enormous addition to an affordable housing contract.
Don't worry, the sheriffs are gonna fix them.
I'm already not sleeping at night, so let's not add to that. So just if there's, I think that there's been some conversation about perhaps there might be some leniency for affordable housing. We've also noticed on the HUD website, the BABA page is currently down. Not sure what that means, but just wanted to point out that if there's anything on the federal level that could be done for affordable housing related to
Please,
Build
you gotta
America,
get me
Buy
this right away, and
America.
I'm gonna have to leave in 3 minutes.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
please get me the stuff, like, we got about probably 6 or 8 weeks before the real junk on the tax bill comes around. You know, not to throw out another crazy
Can I-
idea.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah,
So
please.
I think we're talking a lot about new construction. The other big thing, because especially so much housing was built in the, after, post-war, that's aging, right? So, and that is, I think, not as much pushback, but
That we
preservation.
call
The
that the new market.
preservation, yeah.
No, neighborhood tax credit thing that needs to get through.
so, yeah, I think that in our team, they have like 9 different areas they're working on. So if there are areas that are less difficult, that aren't necessarily new, but rebuilding what's existing, improving it, whatever you call it, I think they're, and Anna's the pro, she's the nerd.
Anna?
Don't steal her though.
I had been shopping a real cool idea, but once there's not much there. But it's a good way to get politicians, you know, like, every community in America has got some level, and I'm not talking about covered malls, but dilapidated strip center.
Yep.
You know, if they are already, and they're normally in places that may not be fully zoned housing anyway, but some conversion, but there's not, that, you know, it feels like the owners, for the most part, and not making an overstatement, want too much money, and it's not like the business structures have that well, but you talk about something that you can, anywhere in the
It's happening in
Commonwealth.
Fairfax.
Yeah,
So
we're
it's happening
Have you
with
got a
office,
way-
Yeah, we did a
it's
bunch of
happening
them.
with office, it's happening with shopping centers.
Repurposing incentive.
And then you got Fair Oaks has the parking, the new parking, so Fairfax is already on board doing that. Again, you've got to figure out a way to just make the process quicker.
What about
so that you bring more houses to
what about
market.
also, are people changing their views on modular housing? You know, is it?
We have work to do there, we have work to do
Yeah.
there, yeah, and I wanna recognize that we are over time, and I don't know if
Thank you.
anybody has any last minute statements, but Senator, what an honor. We have our work to do to get you ideas, because Doge will find things to do unless we give them ideas,
Yes,
so we're
that's
gonna
right,
keep
that's
I-
right.
I-
Keep
I-
them
this
busy.
time, yeah, we're gonna keep them busy with our ideas.
Housing, childcare, long-term care. You know, and then I'll spend all my other time on AI and
Yes.
TikTok and why are you looking?
We've got federal employee unions next, it's kind of
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
We need our head employees to process the 202.